Thank you, everyone. This meeting is the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It was not to be considered a public community meeting. There's time for public participation during the meeting. As indicated, agenda items, remarks to the public. Roll call.
Mrs. DeTore? Here. Mr. Douglas?
Here.
Ms. Grotowski? Here. Dr. Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Thorson?
Here. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda and deadline?
Mr. Thorson, we need to add one thing to the executive session. We can add the wording employment and compensation of public employees. And the version that you had in the administrative phrases had Mr. Dahlhofer as the assistant high school principal, but he is now back at Lindsay. So it's corrected on the agenda that we had out.
Any other discussion? Okay. So we have a motion, so the motion would be to approve those addendum items on there. Then roll call.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes.
Mrs. DeTore? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Grotowski?
Yes. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 15, 2015?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. DeTore? Yes. Mr. Douglas?
Abstain.
Mr. Grotowski?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yes. Okay, remarks to the public. Do we have any folks that are wishing to address the school board? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, great. Okay, superintendent's report.
Tonight I'll be turning the microphone over to Mr. Sean Whelan, who's our Director of Technology, and Sean will be giving the board an update of the status of the district's technology and where we would like to be going moving forward. Mr. Whelan.
Thank you. I'm going to be talking to you then about a technology replacement initiative. One of the things, there's actually 4 different areas that I want to focus on. Our network infrastructure, which is the backbone of our network for the district. Our Windows XP computer replacement. I did talk about this at the beginning of last year. We have a number of Windows XP machines that we really need to address at this point. Staff computers. We definitely need to start taking a look at staff computers. And lastly, our one-to-one initiative. For our network infrastructure, I want to break it down a little bit for you. We have switches, which is any wired connection in the district goes through a switch. These switches are aging. They average 10 years. They connect every single wired computer, printer, and device. So anything that has a wired connection in our district goes through this. This affects all 4 buildings. The other thing too is they're at a setting of 100 megabytes. That is an old technology standard, which limits us to that speed. Now everything is moving towards a 1 gigabyte standard, which is a much faster speed. It's 10 times the 100 megabyte standard that we have right now. So this move would start to future-proof us to start looking at switches now. Rather than replacing old aging technology that we currently have with the same thing, we would move to the newer standards. At each of our buildings, we have a server. There's 4 of them right now. The servers are connected to our wired network, and the purpose of the server is that's basically when we connect and log into it, it sets restrictions. It also sets things like filtering to make sure that we are filtering outside content. It also takes care of storage. So anybody that has storage space, mainly for staff purposes at this point, that is secure storage that we do not have out on the cloud, for example, that they're stored internally. They're used for many other functions beside that. Our 4 servers currently at both elementaries, the 2 that we have there, are 10 years old right now. They are also, all 4 servers are running on Windows Server 2003. At the beginning of the year, I told you about Windows XP being at its end of life. Windows Server 2003 is now at its end of life. What end of life means is there's no longer any more software updates to it. As they release security patches from any network viruses or malware, those patches are no longer being applied to that software. Everything currently operates, but we are at risk the more we use these machines moving forward. The last part of our network infrastructure I want to talk about is our Wi-Fi arrays at the buildings. When we originally purchased our Wi-Fi, the intention was to connect laptops. It was a different time. It was before we started looking at one-to-one. We wanted to connect basically wireless computers to the network, laptop cards, single laptops, and things like that. As our needs have grown, especially as we started going one-to-one, we're finding more and more of our classrooms are reporting connectivity issues. Some of them have really strong connectivity. The room 2 doors down could have very weak connectivity. What I did is we have purchased from a company called MRK to update our Wi-Fi a service fee. And what they do is they take care of protecting our hardware for all of our Wi-Fi devices. If we start having reports of issues, they will replace them immediately. They'll mail us out a new. And it also takes care of our software, because our Wi-Fi devices need new software updates in order to be maintained and to work. They also, as a part of their service, came out and did a site survey for us. And with the site survey, you can see it up on the screen right now, that's Lindsay Elementary. The areas of the brightest green are our strongest connectivity. You'll notice branching out of that, the color green shifts to a lighter green, and then to a yellow, eventually gray and white in certain areas. That's a loss of connectivity. We want all of those rooms to have a strong green connectivity. That's when they have their strongest connection. So you'll notice the building looks really good, but you'll see gray areas that are there. You'll see yellow areas and light green. Those are based on the new surveys. We also did that at the other buildings. I know these are rather small right now, but you can see we've actually done it in all 4 buildings. So we look pretty good, but you can clearly see that there's some areas that are in your yellow and your light green. So the nice part is we have some really good connectivity in our building. We have some holes though that we need to plug up. As I was putting together a budget, basically I wanted to make sure that I gathered all the information that I could. Besides looking at our district, I also wanted to speak to other districts, a wide variety of vendors, to see what people are using to replace all of these devices. So it wasn't just off of me, I wanted to see what other people are doing. The servers at both elementaries we need to replace right now. The 2 at the high school and the middle school, traditionally what we've done is we've shifted those to the elementaries and we put the newer at the larger buildings because of the fact of the capacity usage there. The 2 servers that we would have would cost $9,500 each to replace them. We also would be replacing the server software at all 4 buildings, just the server software because the other 2 buildings are able to be used at a cost of $177. We have to replace our switches. We in total have 30 switches that need to be replaced throughout the district. Some are 24 and some are 48 port switches. We also have to replace 32, or not replace, we have to add 32 Wi-Fi arrays spread between all 4 buildings in order to plug all of our holes. The nice part about that is originally I thought we were going to have to use much larger arrays to do that. The arrays can cost anywhere up to $2,300 to do that. In our case, because of the fact that it's classrooms that we're dealing with and they're more contained spaces, we're able to use 2 radio arrays, which are much smaller and easier to fill the gaps. But we need 32 of them in order to plug all of our holes at the buildings. The total proposal would be $116,000 for that. Broken up over 3 years, it would be $38,000 in order to take care of our network infrastructure. The network infrastructure is critical to look at because that affects every single device that connects to our network. So it's a pretty critical thing that we start addressing now because at some point we have to do it. This isn't something we're going to have a choice on. Speeds are moving ahead. We're going to have to be able to match those speeds in order to utilize the devices. Websites are more demanding now. The use and cost of that work are because of that. This will also take care of some of the speed issues that our staff are regularly reporting that they're having in the classrooms. XP computer replacement. One of the things we really need to take care of is we have got many aging XP machines in our district. Most of them are based in labs. We need to do a careful replacement of these because a lot of them are daily use. I know even though we've moved to one-to-one devices, the question comes up, do we still need labs? There are a wide variety of reasons why we still need labs. At the high school, just for an example, we have a CAD lab, we have computer programming labs, we have a business lab at the high school. Those need to be maintained. They use specialized high-end software that our one-to-one devices, which tend to usually be a consumer-grade device, will not run. So we need to keep those up and running. Those labs are also a source for printing, which one-to-one devices like iPads and Chromebooks are not really geared towards printing. They're meant to be paperless devices. The idea is for classroom assignments to make it easier for them to turn digitally assignments into teachers to save us on our paper costs. But there are still reasons why we need to print in our district and be able to have students have access to that. Many of the machines that we have in the computer labs date back as far as 2008, and they're still running. So we've gotten a lot of life out of them. The problem is those machines now are very noisy, very slow, and we cannot update them to the newest versions of Windows. We can't update them beyond XP, so this is kind of a no-choice thing. It's not a matter of buying new software. The machines will not support the software. As far as what this looks like, one of the things I'm going to point out from the beginning, Westwood's lab has been slowly updated along the way. We also had a generous donation from Westwood's PTO that's finishing off their lab. So their lab will be replaced at the start of this year. We have 8 more computers that are coming in. Computers have actually already been ordered to finish off Westwood's lab. As a part of that donation, they also, as I'm going to mention again, they also ordered a Chromebook card for Westwood, which has been ordered as well. So thank you to Westwood's PTO for that. For the middle school, we currently have 56 XP machines that are in use. We need to replace those. We have 110 at the high school that are being used in labs that are either multi-use or classroom-based. So some of them are multi-use that are being used by multiple teachers as well. Lindsay, their entire lab needs to be replaced. They have an aging lab. Many of those machines do age back to 2008. They have 34 machines that need to be replaced total. That would include their lab plus their library, where the other mini lab is as well. There's 2 different options that I put out before the board. We have a 1-year replacement option, which would be the full cost, which is $113,000. I also broke it down into a 3-year version, depending on what the board wanted to pursue. I wanted to give you 2 choices. I am very worried, because I know I approached it beginning of the year about this. I am very worried about the XP machines, mainly because of the fact that we really tried to make sure we consolidated down to only labs that are currently in use for classroom instruction. No labs that are sitting as dead zones where people aren't using them anymore. Our goal is to consolidate. So what I represented there is really an example of just what we need in our district right now, what is currently being used for instructional purposes. We want to make sure that we replace those, though. I honestly am highly recommending the 1-year replacement option. I wanted to give the board both options so that we can get some guidance as far as what your preference is. But that's. We also will be using the current LCD monitors in that cost because so many of them are still in great shape. It just makes sense to use the current monitors. The actual base machine is really what our staff needs. They will get a new keyboard, a new mouse, and a brand new machine. The monitors are still of use. So our goal is not to spend money on things we don't need, it's to replace the things that we do. The last part on this end is staff computers. It's something that we haven't really been talking about a lot, but our staff computers are aging across the district. These are the main machines used for instruction and delivering instruction, especially nowadays with the demands on teachers to bring in instructional content from the outside of their classroom. Many teachers' computers are literally falling apart. We've had examples this year of keyboards off of laptops that are being handed to us where the keyboards are actually falling apart. Keys are falling out of them. And these are machines we're asking our teaching staff to instruct with. We want to start a replacement plan to start taking care of over a 3-year period all of our teaching staff. So that way we can start plugging this gap, which is a major problem currently facing instruction in this district. My goal after this cycle is to put in a reasonable yearly replacement plan. I'm hitting you with a lot of big ticket items right now. We can plug in a lot of these holes, these giant holes with the XP machines, with staff computers, with our network, to eventually start breaking down to a yearly budget after this 3-year cycle, which is really where we need to head as a district. So we can say, what is our base 1-year cost? So we aren't always doing these huge expenditures. This is why we always look towards this. So I wanted to break down the staff computers. These are broken down by departments. The numbers that I had before you are estimates based on current staff. These will fluctuate. Obviously, if staff shrinks, we will shrink some of those numbers in each building. As staff increases, we would have to increase those numbers. But with our current state and the way enrollment is right now, those numbers are going to be pretty solid for where we're at. That's based on a $700 computer for staff members. So we're not going crazy with our purchase there. We're buying a mid-range laptop for staff.
Do you have the numbers? Like how many units you're purchasing for each?
Yes, I do. Actually, I'll email it to all the board members. Yeah. But I'd be happy to, I'll email it to all of you right after this meeting. I actually do have that breakdown. I tried to cut out some of the columns in my Excel spreadsheet so that way the numbers were a little bit more visible on screen, but I can send all that information to you.
Sean?
Yes.
You're using a 3-year, and most of your projections are a 3-year cycle.
Right.
Is that kind of what technology looks at as 3 years, instead of 5 years or 7 years, or?
In the case of everything I'm mentioning here, I went to a 3-year cycle because of how bad the problem is. I would like to move all of that I'm mentioning above here to a 5-year cycle. So it's not my intention to stick with a 3-year cycle. In this particular case, like when I look at the 1-to-1 that I'm presenting, you can see I put it's a 4-year cycle for those devices, but a 5-year plan in place. We really want to move our district towards a 5-year plan. That's a reasonable expectation for any of our machines. This is representative of the problem we have now, not the overall intention of where we should have. To your point, we really want to head to a 5-year plan after this. So I'm looking at this as a 3-year cycle to fix our problems. This is not, especially when I was talking about the lab computers, it's not representative of every computer we have in the district. It's representative of the ones that are Windows XP. So we currently have a number, like Westwood's lab is a great example. We have a number of labs that are Windows 7 right now. They're good, they're great machines, they're ready to go. We're going to want to get those on a 5-year cycle. So that way moving forward, we don't have those machines fall into this problem.
And Windows 10 is right around the corner.
Correct. Sean, just most of your Windows 7 machines right now will upgrade to Windows 10 with no problem. So, and Windows 10 is geared to actually be a system that will lend itself to Windows 7. It's actually a free upgrade from Windows 7 for machines and Windows 8.
Just for clarification, when you say a 3-year initially, you're talking about a 3-year implementation cycle?
Yes.
Or you're not talking about a 3-year life expectancy on the machine?
No, not at all. Yes, not at all. My plan wouldn't be to jump back in 3 years and replace these machines. My plan would be in 3 years to start moving to a 5-year replacement cycle of all of our machines globally. That's why I brought up the other machines that are not represented here. These machines, we would hope to get at least a 5-year cycle out of them. I want to put our district really on a 5-year cycle because it would be great at the end of that to be able to cycle out machines at a nice yearly cost instead of having to do, we are really caught with big expenditures because of the fact that we have not placed inside. Right.
But the stuff that's not listed here, if this is a 3-year plan to get us fixed to that, the remaining equipment that we have, do you anticipate that will last 4 years because you won't start replacing it? You did all of that stuff.
I pulled in both of our technicians who've been working with all of them and asked them where are our machines currently at. And the intention was to make sure that, and that's the reason why we're looking at a 3-year cycle first. After that, I can come back and take a look at, this is all of our machines globally now. And what I want us to start looking at, when we buy these machines, as we put them in place, we need to start keeping track of the year they were purchased. So that way we have a list of every single machine in our district, every switch in our district, every one of these devices as they go in. Chromebooks, for example, that I purchased last year for 5th grade across the district. I have those in a spreadsheet list I can pull up for you right now. I can tell you when they were purchased, where they are currently at, what classrooms they were in. I want to move to that model so that way we know with every single machine how long we've had it, what its usage history is, what its repair history is. That way we know where we're at. And we can make a better prediction, a more informed prediction as far as what is our life expectancy. Maybe we can get 6 years. I don't know until we start really actively putting in that plan. And it gives us a chance as a district to really evaluate where we're at.
Jackie, on the high school, that's 66 computers at the high school, 49 at the middle school, 30 at Westwood. Lindsay has 29 and Central Office 16. That's just in total, I think, for 109. I have Sean speaking.
And the computers that are in these classrooms, I'm sure these are not all age, or are they? So our staff and our administrators are all using computers that are pretty much at the end of their useful life? Or
Our staff computers for the majority of our staff members, I would say at least 80% of our staff members are old and aging and falling apart.
So you just buy new vacuums to Detroit?
Are these
That's like the television, man.
are these computers then, are they portable, these laptops?
Some are laptops, some are desktops.
It just depends on the instruction or the preference, or what is it?
It's honestly been a case of, this is what the teachers have been given, and that's what they've worked with. They haven't really had much of a choice, if that makes sense.
Right, but I mean, going forward with these, the $700.
I would want staff laptops because, especially for teaching staff, there's a lot of district staff that require a desktop and would prefer a desktop because of their position. In the case of most of our teaching staff, because of the fact that they have to grade papers at home, they have to access our online grading system, email parents, things like that, to have the portability of a laptop to be able to take it with them.
In terms of that, I mean, with the cloud, would it, I mean, are you looking at it potentially in the future? Or is there no real savings being on desktop? Because what I'm getting at is with the cloud, the portability of a computer, if you're either working at home or you're working at school, the portability is no longer a big factor if you're going to be two places where you could have, in fact, a desktop or some other machine.
Potentially, if the cloud's there. Not everything that we're doing right now is cloud-based. So yes, that could be a potential. A lot of our staff software right now requires, actually to your point with the cloud, one of the reasons why we want portability is so that our staff members can go anywhere in the building and be able to do their grading, to be able to do lesson planning. A lot of our staff now do shared lesson planning. Right, exactly. So I would move most of our staff, unless there was a reason, obviously I would consult teaching staff on this. Most of our staff would probably more than likely want to move towards a laptop option just to be able to take it home and utilize it elsewhere, in their classroom as well. I'll go on a great teaching example when I taught. There were times where I was pulling students over to a small group to a kidney-shaped table in my room. I started taking my computer with me to those locations. Whereas when I started teaching, my computer needed to be plugged into the wall and based there, just because that was the way we taught back then. We didn't have the reason. There was no reason. Nowadays, there's more reason for our staff to be able to move around in locations, even within their classroom.
That makes a lot of sense. I have another question, which I was wondering about. I can see why we have computer labs at the high school, maybe even the middle school, because of the kind of software, the kind of work that they'd be doing. And of course, you know, if you're printing CAD stuff or printing something, say, that's produced in Photoshop, yeah, you need that. Why does Westwood and Lindsay need a computer lab?
I'll use examples of what I've seen in both buildings. I was talking to Mr. Dahlhofer about Lindsay. I saw a fourth grade teacher with his staff, with his class, with the iPads, utilizing the desktop computer for research, using the iPad as a workspace. So teachers now, the fact that we have those set labs, a lot of the heavier lifting, you know, if they're going to websites that are multimedia, it's easier to have those done by the lab than to have them on the portable device. The portable device can be for student product.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of looking at how we utilize the labs before. The same thing happens at Westwood. I know that fifth grade does quite a few projects that they present in the multipurpose room there. They will often take their devices to the lab and utilize one for their research, utilize the other as their workspace. A lot of the one-to-one devices, one of the best products and best reasons for us to have one-to-one devices is for student product. The content delivery is usually coming from elsewhere. There's teachers who utilize textbooks with iPads and Chromebooks. You know, the textbook is the resource, the iPad and the Chromebook is the student product piece. So there's opportunities to have students create product that they couldn't create before because they have that with them. But then also it becomes a support piece for further research. You have it now. So in Westwood's case, just to answer your question on that, I met with Mrs. Brewster and her team at the end of the school year, and we talked about the fact that Westwood has traditionally had 2 full labs. And we talked about the fact that really what the staff needs at this point is one solid, stable working lab that they can count on. So there's a consolidation going on at that building because of the fact that
want a
they're
working lab.
But that was really the reason why PTO jumped in and said, let's
Yeah.
finish off this lab so we can have a solid one-to-one experience.
Is there, this gets into, is there a real reason? Is it the portability and the ease of use that makes the iPad then desirable at the elementary level? Because it sounds like if we put kids on Chromebooks, then it wouldn't be as essential to have computer labs, or am I misunderstanding that part of it?
No, a Chromebook, they're two different purposes. The iPad and Chromebooks, there's a lot alike about them. They're a consumer-grade device, so one of the reasons why the cost of an iPad and a Chromebook versus buying a desktop or a laptop for all of our students is much less. So you can usually take care of 2 to 3 students for the same cost as you would to buy a full-blown device for each student. So there's a cost piece to that, which is the reason why more districts go to that.
So it's cheaper than to have one computer lab instead of a whole bunch of laptops. Is that?
Are you talking about Chromebooks, is that what you're talking about, or?
Well, I'm talking about, you're saying you want to do some of the more sophisticated stuff and multimedia stuff in a computer lab.
Sure.
And so what I'm basically asking is why we don't provide the kind of computer for kids that they could in fact do that on without a computer lab. And I mean, you're right that it's more cost effective to do it that way.
Right. There's also a management piece to it. For example, iPads and Chromebooks can be centrally managed, whereas if we're going to put in the computer labs, we're going to have to image each device, which is basically take a snapshot of all of the computer software we want to put on that device. Those have to be individually put on. If there's a software issue on it, that's not something that a staff member can fix on the fly. They have to call out the tech support, we have to come down and help out. That's fine when we've got computer labs spread all over the district. We can take care of those. When we start getting into one-to-one for students, when we're talking about, especially if we're moving towards thousands of devices, the downtime, or we have to, we have to cut down on those type of devices. One of the advantages to iPads and Chromebooks are they don't require immediate tech support. Usually, in most cases, you can reboot those devices and they work just fine. Chromebook runs on a Chrome OS, which is a much simpler operating system. It's built for collaboration. The iPads run on the same operating system, obviously, that the iPhones and iPads have always run on iOS.
Yeah.
So they're easier to maintain operating systems for the end user and the teacher. So that's one of the reasons why we look to those. But they don't lose a unique and interesting functionality for students. They have apps that you can add onto your classroom. You can still access the entire web from them. So as a research tool, you can bring in that piece. The comparison between iPads and Chromebooks, why are iPads usually better for younger students? Usually the research will show because of the touch screen. It's easier for, especially with kids with smaller hands, it's easier for them to navigate. The apps offer a wider variety of touch options and manipulative options. As we start graduating, the reason why we're looking towards Chromebooks, there's greater need for students to learn typing skills. The writing demands of the classroom start to grow bigger. Also, the Chromebook's built with Google inside, so because of our Google accounts, you can use them to collaborate very easily with the teachers. It's like right now we have in our district, from 3 through 5, all of our students have, and straight on through K-12, have Google accounts that they're using. So,
Great.
the one-to-one devices. I put them on a 4-year cycle. The reason why I put one-to-one devices on a 4-year cycle, what we want to move towards is a natural jumping off point, to the point of devices right now. Microsoft, for example, Mr. Thorson mentioned Windows 10 coming out. We don't know what the future means for our district as far as what in that price point we should be looking at for devices. We want a natural point where we can start sending out new devices to our students and to our staff. We also want a point where we can do professional development with our staff. In the case of looking at one-to-one devices, I've talked to a lot of neighboring school districts to see how long they've been getting on their Chromebooks for a lifespan. Typically, the Chromebooks and iPads are running 4 to 5 years. Just to give you an example right now, we currently have iPads throughout our district's grades 1 through 4 that we're moving to. All of them are iPad 2s. Those have been out of production. So every single one-to-one device we have for our students right now from 1 through 4 are out of production. That's something we need to be aware of moving forward as we do the one-to-one. And I set the one-to-one separate on purpose because I feel that this is probably something the board wants to think about in a larger scale as we move forward. The original Chromebooks are similarly aging, so it's not an iPad versus Chromebook thing. We have the same problem with both devices as they get older. These are consumer-grade devices. They have huge events, both companies, launching their new devices. They try to support them. Our iPad 2s will support the new operating system that's coming out in September. They're going to iOS 9. They will support them. So the good news is our devices can move forward. The same thing with our Chromebooks right now. They're under a lifespan where we keep getting continual updates to those devices. So we're in a good place with them right now. We want to start thinking about, first of all, how do we want to finish our one-to-one? But also, how do we want to start replacing our one-to-one? So that's one of the things that I'm putting forward right now. I picked grades 5 and grades 9 as the starting point because that would give a 4-year cycle. So a student would get a new device in 5th grade. They would keep it for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. By the time they hit 9th grade, they would start off with a new device 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That also gives us as a district a natural breaking point for, hey, there's this new device out there, and really this is where we should be heading as a district. Where do we put that in and implement that? It would be in those grade level spans. The reason why is it gives us, for our students, a natural starting point. It also gives us, for our staff, a natural point for professional development to help them through what does the new device mean to their classroom. Windows 10 is likely going to offer us some unique opportunities moving forward. We don't know what that's going to look like probably for a good 1.5 to 2 years until that system has had a chance to roll out and we see what that means for portable devices. What I put before you, basically, when it comes to devices, is a price point, so you know what it costs us per device to put those in classrooms. An iPad typically runs $379, and they also included in that cost that's before you, and I can send you the full-blown numbers from the sheet if you would like to see those. There's also included in that cost a case and a cart cost. That's broken down. So for grade 4 and year 1, for example, if I was replacing those and sending the older devices down to kindergarten, if I got 150 of them, it would be $68,000 because of the fact that we would have to buy new carts in order for kindergarten and grade 4 to all have one-to-one carts for charging their devices. The reason why the numbers start to drop as they go down each year is, first of all, our enrollment drops. We're eventually going to get to the point where we don't need to buy a new cart for every single classroom. We're actually going to have to replace a couple of carts here and there in each grade level span. But what we're going to need to do is, because our iPads all have the original connector, we're going to have to retrofit the carts so that way they can use the new connectors that are available. We can still use the same carts though. Most of your cart companies actually sell a very inexpensive kit that we can retrofit the current carts that we have. So we will do that whenever possible in order to keep our costs down, because there's no reason to buy a new cart. We really want the device in the student hands. For the Chromebook replacement plan, the Chromebook device cost is $270. That $270 is not just for the Chromebook, it's also for the Chromebook Management Console. What the Management Console does for us is it allows us from a central location to manage each Chromebook. We can also use testing as an example, but actually classroom apps. I was talking to a 5th grade teacher about the fact that we can push apps to the Chromebook, web apps. We can also control which apps the students are using at a given time. So if we want them only accessing this particular website or this particular web app, we can control those functions centrally. That's included in that cost. And that's a one-time expense for the device. That's not a yearly cost. So it's a nice bonus feature that we have with the Chromebooks. Again, what I did was when I was working through those numbers, they're based on current enrollment. Obviously, those numbers would shift every year as I would maybe keep an eye on what our current enrollment is and make adjustments accordingly. But if we did 155 Chromebooks at $270 to replace grade 5, it would be $49,000. That includes the device, that includes the console, and the carts for all of the classrooms across both buildings.
Question. It makes sense with the current enrollment numbers when you're like going 5 to 8 and then 9 to 12. But in the iPads, you're starting in grade 4 and they're getting pushed down.
Correct.
So when you're buying 150, the following year you only have 120 students. The year before now you have an excess of 30 iPads.
Right.
Why would you not reduce if they're only a year old? Why would you purchase the following year?
One of the problems we're also having is because of the fact that devices are aging, the iPad 2s, breakages.
So you're just using it to.
So we're using those to basically fill in our breakages in other classrooms. That's a great question. So that's an estimate based on the amount of breakages that we're having. We have, and that really is mostly our 2 years that are oldest devices. We're finding a number of breakages. A lot of times to replace an iPad, just to give you an example, if we're replacing a screen and the digitizer that's behind it, that's $150 a device. Well, it's a $379 device at that point, and their technology that's no longer being produced, it's hard to justify putting $150 into that cost. We're better off pushing down to those that will get more life out of them. And to your point, with the fact that we're starting to keep track of when we purchase the devices, that can make adjustments to those numbers later. That's why they're estimates. So we can shrink those numbers accordingly if we find that, wow, you know what, we bought an extra cart, we didn't need as many. We certainly don't have to order what we don't need. So we will maintain that as we go along. Those are going to have to be estimates until we see what each year looks like.
So Sean, did I miss it? So the high school devices, and they're going to be cycled down too?
The high school devices
How
are
do you see that?
the reason with the elementary, really they would stay classroom-based. The older devices in the elementary, I would see are higher level, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They would get the newest devices because they're going to have the heaviest, most intensive use. We would shift down the older devices to K1 and 2. You know, for the purpose of making sure they have that one-to-one, but they're not going to be doing the same kind of intensive applications and skill sets that our older kids are doing. So my plan for the cycle is really to 3 and 4 are going to be getting the replacements. 1 and 2 and K1 and 2 are going to get the older devices as they go along. Take 5 out of it because 5 we moved to Chromebooks. 5, to answer your question, which is where you want to go in 5 and 9, it would be the same thing. With 5, we would have grade 5 devices moved with the students because it would be based on enrollment. So now we start attaching the device by serial number to a student. They would have that device all 4 years as they travel forward. So that would prevent us from buying devices we don't need. We would be buying it attached to the student. Our younger kids, I don't really want to move to that model just because of the fact that I think it's teachers are going to want to have more access and control of those devices. But once we start getting into 5th grade, we can start teaching the responsibility of maintaining and managing those devices. And 5th grade is a natural starting point to move them on. And we do the same model in our high school. And basically my model that I put in high school follows that same thing. That's why you'll see in both of those, you'll see 5th grade, 5th grade, 5th grade, 5th grade, 9th grade, 9th grade, 9th grade. The numbers do start to shift based on what our current enrollment looks like. Obviously, there will be adjustment each year based on where we're heading. So those totals are based on current enrollment numbers and an estimate of devices that we're going to have to replace along the way. The nice part about that is it does put us in a price point. So Chromebooks right now, if you look at all of our neighboring districts, everybody's using Chromebooks because of the fact for usually our older students, because of the fact they've got a built-in keyboard, we can start doing the word processing that we want to do, we can access the websites. There's instant collaboration capabilities on it. It's very easy to manage. Windows 10, as you mentioned, may open up a different possibility on Windows machines. I have no way of knowing what that's going to look like. But at least for our district, this puts us into a price point of what we're looking for price point-wise moving forward per device. So if there's an opportunity to jump to a different device because it benefits our students, we would look for something in that price point to try and maintain the costs that we've decided on as a district moving forward. And that's all I have for you, basically. You know, I hate doing a lot, but are there any questions or anything I can clarify?
We've asked for this for such a long time and we never had it, so thank you very much.
It's not where I want us to be at. I really do want to get us on a 5 to 6 year plan. We really need to go in those first.
What is, I think as we go forward, what is, and I'm sure that's coming up in superintendent's recommendations, but where is this money coming from? What does it look like? Where does this move come from? I mean, that's a lot of money, and yet it appears you've done a great job of showing why we need it. you've made recommendations, for instance, on the XP machines, you'd really like to see those replaced in a year. You gave us a projection to do it for 3, which you'd like to see it done in a year. That's a large number. But on top of that, we need to do some infrastructure spending within that 3-year plan. Are we okay to do that infrastructure in 3 years? Do you feel confident that,
Yes.
because ideally, let's just do it all, right? I mean, but we don't really have the ability to do that.
That's why I try to give you options, as far as
Okay.
what that looks like, recognizing that obviously there's a financial issue there involved as well. These are really our top ticket items we have to take care of. We have to take care of these 3-year cycle.
And so as you look at it, the XP machines are going to be there as, definitely, let's do that in the first year if we're all in agreement. And then the networking infrastructure as well as the one-to-one technology. Okay.
I talked to both of the systems technician when it comes to network infrastructure, and I said, can you go 3 years out of this? And absolutely can. We would need to do it in pieces anyway to be able to effectively manage it. So 3 years is a reasonable amount of time to turn that around.
What about the staff computers? Because I hear nothing about how horrible they are every staff member. Is that something that can really wait 3 years to get the last?
What we would do with that is we prioritize the greatest need for staff members. Both of our systems technicians have a really good grasp. I mean, obviously, the ideal would be to get every staff member to review it now. We're trying to, again, start building a management system. What I'd love to do for staff is, let's get out of this hole and start putting ourselves in a position where we've got an effective replacement plan moving forward, so that we're not going to this position again where they've got machines that are effectively working in their classrooms. They can use their systems.
When I talked about just Sean with this as well, I was like, well, 3 years for staff, can we maybe do that too?
That's what I was
Because the XP
thinking.
machines make sense to do that, well, the XP machines I can get behind because, gosh, they're relocated. But when you're looking at staff too, I kind of like to see staff have the best tools in their hands as well as the kids. I mean, that should be moved to 1 year from now as well. But, Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
We really needed this, and it hasn't been done, so thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Doris, I had you ask where this money comes from.
Yeah. Mrs. Treasurer, where did that money come from?
The buzz kill. Right now, if we did the network for the 3 years, the staff computers over 2 or 3, wherever you want to do that, and then XP and replacement, that's about $385,000 to $400,000 in either 2 years or 3 years. That would come out of that excess roofing PI fund that we have available. As we discussed, there are some areas that we're allowed to spend that money on and talk to the public about. And that's technology would be one of those things, along with transportation, safety, energy efficiency. That would certainly fit into one of those categories if you're looking at also expenditure out of that fund.
So you're saying the 1 year of the infrastructure, or I mean, the 3-year plan for the infrastructure, correct?
Right, so the $38,000.
Right.
It's in that last summary.
Well, I see 196 and 120, but if we were to make staff computers,
The
like a
120 is-
2-year instead of a 3-year.
Yeah, you would have to pick up half of that $44,000 a year too, so that makes it $20,000 more. So if you take up, the 196 is the XP for 1 year, and the 185,
For the 1-to-1.
yeah, for the 1-to-1. So that's 385, then add 20,000, so it's about $405,000 in expenditures this year.
What I talked about with Sean as well, and Dr. Marquardt, is this one-to-one technology piece. You know, other schools are incorporating something like that in student fees. And where you have that initial cost, but you're recouping that over the course of time, that they have these in 4 years for their student fees. At the end of its 4-year cycle, you're handing them to the students. And we're basically recouping some of that cost, or at least our initial outlay doesn't increase like that every time we go around. But that said, you know, I think we need to spend some more time looking at a model, see what other schools have done and best practices. So I like the idea of changing on XPs. I like the idea of keeping ahead of the infrastructure. But more importantly, Sean, I love the idea that we have a plan in place. You know what I mean? So I felt when we initially started this, or at least for me as a board member, and I won't speak for you, Tom, but I didn't understand why we did the iPads versus maybe Chromebooks and why those kind of moves. So I'm moving further along the cycle now, understanding why we're doing that. So it makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
So we are looking at sustainability of a plan like this, so looking at it as trying to get us in a position where we are looking at a 4-year cycle, 3-year cycle, so this is very important for budgeting, and not only looking when we have to place in a student fee.
How does that change the 5-year forecast?
It doesn't, because the 5-year forecast is in the general fund. If we spend this money out of the PI fund, we just reduce that amount of
We
excess.
just change where we're putting it.
Right now, in the general fund, we have approximately 75,000 to 100,000 put in place for capital outlays for technology, and we still are using part of that for networking we did this summer, or something to that effect. So this would be outside that capital outlay that we see.
So you talked about the possibility of student fees based on this with them getting a computer.
No, I said that, and
Because before.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to pin that on you, but
It's okay. It
I,
makes sense from another standpoint, which is you want the students to have a buy-in, they and their parents, to the fact that this is an expensive machine they have to take care of.
I understand that, but I think one of the things that we have to look at certainly is computers and where those computers fit into the curriculum and into the programming. Once computers become ubiquitous enough so that there are computers that rise to the level of a textbook, we're not able to charge fees for those computers because they would be expected. Just as we buy textbooks for students, we would be buying computers for students at that point, or devices that would take the place of a textbook, really to supplant them. At this stage of the game, I don't think we've gotten to that level with our technology, certainly, so I think we have several options. And one of those, obviously, we could look at would be including some sort of fee associated with computers. Okay.
I think we're just kind of on the tip of the iceberg of that, and, you know what I mean, what that's all gonna look like and how that moving forward would be. I just don't necessarily see the district buying every child that comes here a computer at this age.
No, but hypothetically, what do you expect out of an iPad when you're done with it in say next year? What do you do with those iPad 2s that you no longer are using? Do we sell them? Do we just?
We
what do
haven't
do?
hit, we haven't hit that point.
So to my point is, if you're gonna, say you were to sell them for $50 or $100, if you recoup at least up $50 or $100 from the kids over those 4 years, then that's the same principle, it's the same wash at the end, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the kids would get a computer that we're going to get rid of
That
anyway.
you were gonna get rid of anyway.
The problem at this point is we won't get that kind of money for them because of the fact that it's out-of-date aging technology that you're not gonna get $50 to $100. I've actually, for the years that I worked at Westwood, we've done sales on older technology there, and you almost have to, you know, pay people to take it.
Well, that's because we're
Yeah,
talking
I-
about Stone Age
We're talking about
computers.
technology. I've been to those Westwood
Right.
sales, and
But,
that is old stuff.
One of the things we
When it
would
comes
look
to a
at,
free
though,
chisel and say,
and where there will be a potential possibility, we can get our labs at the point where we have them on a replacement cycle. Some of those machines we be able to get that kind of money for, but we're never going to recoup our costs that way. Certainly, we will be in a better position if we're on a replacement cycle to get something for the devices. The question will become, you know, if we're taking all the cost in, then we want to look at what can we get back. If you're putting into a fee, we want to look at, are we giving those devices then to the student afterwards, or are we going to hold on to them? There's a lot of models we can look at as far as different options for that.
What happens to all the XPs? I mean, is that become a recycling cost to us?
It's usually, we're actually in the top, we're actually researching that right now. Different companies want to charge us for it. We are going to a lot of competing vendors to try and at least break even on that, just to be able to dispose of them so they're, you know, obviously not taking up space in our district. But the problem is, again, like I said before, nobody really wants them because of the fact that either they're aging or their functionality is so worn down that we can't really.
I envision maintenance trucks going through those free kind of things that they do at the township. So probably get away with that.
We have to look at the legality of giving a computer and limited to district offices. Once you create, we have to look at whether or not that was something to do.
Do other school districts have computer fees? Is that a trend that's happening in the public school districts now? or
There are
is that a-
sometimes fees associated with computers, or sometimes an insurance fee that's associated with computers as well. So there are a number of ways to skin a cat on that, to answer your question.
Is that just over the last year or two, or has this been going
No,
on
it's
for?
been some period of time. Because some districts are further ahead than we are in terms of getting the technology in the hands of students. I think that we're probably in the middle of the pack, so to speak. I don't think we're lagging greatly, but I don't think we're there at cutting edge either.
And some districts have charged technology fees that's been modest, maybe a $25, $25 technology fee, paper software upgrades, things, email systems, things like that, that are used. So this would be something a little bit different than what we're talking about hardware.
Great job, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.